Well, it looks like we've got a great audience started.
I love it.
Brian, this was
no surprise. You're famous.
Oh, well, I'm pretty sure a lot of these are beautiful Northern colors, which I'm very excited to see. Real quick maintenance for anyone, because Brian, I'm new to this. I actually just lost my little newbie badge. Because, but if you want to follow, then please just kind of click on the picture of whoever it is, whether they're in the audience or whether they're us. You click on the picture and then you just follow. That way you know when more events are coming, because you'll get notifications about what your followers are doing. So that's pretty cool. And Brian, this was a co-creation. But more importantly, I'd really love for you to start, because based on the description, I mean, you were really feeling this word heavy in a really challenging way. You spoke to it, and then we were talking about the mind, and I've got plenty to say on this subject, but I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts about where you want to take this today.
Yeah, and real quick, Al, and I know right where we're going to go. For anybody we don't know on the screen, do you want to just give like a little bit of background on what you do, who you are, how you got here? I mean, I think it's helpful. You know, I don't even still know what to call you. Mental coach. I used to call you my breathing coach. Yeah. I think I told you that, which is very literal. I mean, you did. You taught me how to breathe. And so, do you want to share just who are you? What do you do?
Sure. Yeah. So I call myself a mental coach. I would say that I am a personal trainer for the brain. When I was lost, deeply lost in pretty much every category of my life, I went on this really cool journey to finding myself. And after a couple of years of doing that, I decided to backwards engineer how I got there. And some of the fundamental things I realized were that you can actually train the brain like you can train a muscle in the body. And being an old athlete, that really was how I was able to functionally change the disaster that was my life into something that now is something I could have only dreamed of back then in every way. And so I just work with people, groups, audiences, a lot of one-on-ones. I've done over 4,000 one-on-one sessions, been doing this for 14 years now, professionally, full-time. And I just work with people on supporting them and training their own brain, and I give them like mental workouts in the form of visualizations, and then they do the workouts and they change their lives.
Love it. I've been lucky enough to have been working with you for, I think we're going on 9 or 10 years now, which has been an amazing gift for me. Those that don't know me, probably some would associate me with being a real estate guy. I've been real estate business a long time, entrepreneur, involved in several other businesses. That's just a component of my life that creates financial security. But really, at the end of the day, I am a human being that loves just experiencing life to the fullest in all ways. And I just love being alive. And I am consistently working on growing to find better ways to enjoy life. And whatever it is that I can learn along my way, share that with anybody else who's up to the same thing. And Al has been somebody who's helped me grow along the way, and so together we co-created this conversation. So with that, kind of jumping in, what has been really, what I have found to be so beautiful about Clubhouse, and I love the name of Clubhouse because it really is like, if Al and I were two little kids that were having these big dreamy, big thinking, big dreamy conversations about what we are up to in life, it's like we invited you guys to come hang out in the Clubhouse with us. And I reached out to Al because I wanted to have a conversation with him about health. Health is my main focus right now. Unfortunately, and this will sound very familiar to many of you that are listening, the reason health is really important to me is because I feel really unhealthy. So I waited too long is the punchline, right? So the value is I really am having this conversation. For all of you who are just feeling awesome in your body right now, and you're feeling amazing, hopefully what you can garner from our conversation today will keep you there so you don't have to get to a place where you're not feeling okay and you have to reach out to your friend Al to ask him. Now, if we go back into Al and I's working together life, there's this funny thing. Funny, I don't know, that's figurative, but we'll play around with it a little bit, where I love to surf, and I grew up in the surf, skate, snowboard culture. We use words like stoked and gnarly and rad and all this kind of stuff. And there's another word that was used a lot in the culture as I was growing up, and the word was heavy. Heavy. And we use the word heavy to identify something that was big, right? So if somebody had a big wipeout, you would say, man, that was a heavy wipeout. Or if somebody had a big wave or a big drop, you'd say, what a heavy drop that was on the wave. And it became a descriptive word that we would use to describe something being big or profound that was happening to someone or that happens to someone. So as Al and I had started doing our work together, and we continued to do work together, he challenged me after working together maybe 7 or 8 years. It was probably 2 years ago, Al, I think was, in that time, maybe was the first time that you ever challenged me in saying, hey, well, one of the reasons, because I was saying, man, I've quit drinking, or I've limited my drinking to moderation, I've changed my diet, I'm exercising, but for whatever reason, I can't lose weight, right? And losing weight wasn't like necessarily a component of vanity, but I will also share with you, for anybody who's lost 5 or 8 pounds when you wanted to, it sure feels good. And it comes with a bit of confidence, and there's a few other things that come with it. So yeah, I wanted to feel light. I didn't want to feel heavy. And Al said, well, we should pay some attention to you using that word heavy. If you're using that word heavy all the time, guess what can happen in your life? And so we embarked on this journey of bringing in light and working out heavy. And so that inspired a conversation. So I reached out to Al last week. And I said, hey, Al, I've really been focused on health. I think it's time for us to have a conversation. Business life is great. Family life is great. Relationships are great. I'm living my best life right now. But, man, and I'll share with you guys, my joints hurt. I got some lower back pain. I've got some residual shoulder damage from surfing and some sports injuries. And, when I wake up in the morning, yes, I'm exercising. Yes, my diet's better. And my drinking is probably even less than moderation at this point. It's almost non-existent. And for that, I'm going, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? And Al said, why don't we jump on Clubhouse and talk about you? That's not what he said. But let's use you. But let's use you as the case study to open up some thinking and some conversation around, if you have a heavy mind, can it translate to a heavy body? So, Al, with that, you can either fire away with questions for me to dig in, or take it away.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of both for sure, because back then when we were talking about that word, one of the things we spoke to is how much words matter to us. Now, the reason why words matter is if you can imagine anything in your life that has like ties. If you grab something and it's tied to anything with a string, someone who has ended up deliberately tying something to something else to remember to not forget something. You tie a little thing to the door, so it has these connections to it. Well, words are the same way, and words have been used our entire life to have a connection to something. And then more importantly than that, the collective human consciousness uses words to tie to a collective construct. So when we use radical, that can mean a lot of different things for sure. Especially in surfing terms, you're like, oh man, that was sick, yo. Like that's a word still prevalent today. Ultimately, we can make words mean something different to us on some level, which sick would mean like awesome, cool, radical, especially in the surf world. But the word sick in the collective human consciousness definitely has a different energy. And so even though we may have a different relationship towards words, it's really tough to not let some of the ties to the bigger meaning of those words. It's really tough to not let that affect us on some subconscious level. So if you keep saying the word heavy or sick, which is what our conversation was back then, it can definitely tie us to a bigger definition, even if we don't mean it. So that was part of that point today, which was way back when. But more importantly, Brian, I guess you're doing a lot of things really, really well when it comes to food choices, drink or lack of drinking choices, you're still moving, you're super active, you're still doing a lot of different things. Where would you feel you're contributing to the lightness of your body when it comes to your mind? That would be my first question for you, is if you're saying, Al, I want to be lighter physically, here's what I'm doing to contribute to that in my mind. Do you have some markers there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm doing my breathing exercises every morning. And that would be number one, would be my breathing. And then stretching. I stretch every morning. And then exercise. My exercise has been moderate because of my lower back pain right now and joint pain. I love to run. I love a runner's high. And it's just it's not working. It's not working at the present moment. And so it's been more walking, but still getting outside, getting fresh air, hearing the birds chirp. Those three things, those would probably be the three things that I can say are my markers right now, specifically my breathing. I mean, that's when I feel right after I go through my meditation, my breathing exercises, that's when I feel the lightest.
Cool. And then you spend pretty much the rest of the day just more focused on integrating into life, whether it be follow-ups, yes, meetings, yep, all that stuff. Yep. And that's a great thing. And so a lot of times when people come to me, because I've had many people who have come to me wanting to feel lighter or be lighter, and they start working on themselves, they start changing food choices and drink choices, and it's not about not drinking for anyone that thinks it's that. And also, I'll say one other caveat here is that there is no wrong way to live life. You want to drink, have at it. You want to eat whatever you want to eat, have at it. This isn't about fixing anybody. This is for just anyone who's interested in trying some different things, but there is no wrong shape of body. There's no wrong way to live. There's no you need to not do this or have to eat that in order to live in some elevated existence. You get to choose your life. That's the beauty of this. And I can say, too, just in the way of food and self-love, emotional eating, we would say, and self-love are two of the biggest human challenges we will ever face. So for anyone out there listening who wants to glean something from this but feels either A, that they're being judged, or B, that this is tough, well, yeah, it is tough, but no, you're not being judged because there's no perfectness to this, and do whatever you want. There's no way to do that. But for the people who are listening, clearly someone or some part of you is wanting some different information. And that's what we'll call this today, is just different information. And so...
Yeah, now, real quick to piggyback that, Al, all of my choices to moderate drinking or diet or any of those kinds of things for anybody listening is my own process of self-audit, right? People are like, well, why'd you quit drinking? You know, like, did you have... Anytime you tell someone... Not anytime. A small majority of the time that you tell somebody you quit drinking, like, man, like, so what happened? You know, what do you mean? What happened? Like, well, was there a paradigm shift, or like, you know, did you have a problem?
Yeah.
Like, you know, no, actually, not at all. In fact, because my body isn't, you know, feeling 100%, or because I'm not waking up with clarity, or because I'm not sharp at work, or because my memory doesn't feel as sharp as it was, or because I've been irritable, or because I'm eating shitty late at night, I can kind of link a lot of that back to, you know, having one too many, or having one at all. And so really, just so everybody's hearing me, it's my own process of self-audit. Where can I make a difference? And so I just start picking apart at those little things to make micro changes, hopefully to make big changes in areas that I'm looking for them. So again, no judgment, right there with you.
Cool. So back to kind of this space and asking that question, where do you feel like you contribute to that light mind? Now, the thing about the body is that it takes so much more energy than we realize to support its bigger state of consciousness or evolution. And what we've done over time with our body is we've continued to inject it with tons of human emotion, tons of human actions, in whether it's self-punishment, through food, through exercise, through anything, through self-deprecation, or even something as beautiful as working out can be contributed to self-punishment. And the reason why is because if we're doing any kind of workout to counter, oh, I shouldn't have ate that, I better go for my walk, or oh, I shouldn't have, or man, my body looks like X and I really need to make it better. The whole concept of exercise in our society as a whole is to make us better, which is basically telling your body every movement you do that it's not enough. And so we measure our body in a way that is this not enough feeling. And I can be a perfect testament to that, which leads me to the walking, the running that you're experiencing now, Brian, which is when I was growing up, it was pain is weakness leaving the body. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Like, you just got to punish your body. It's a weakling. You got to make it stronger. So I spent my whole youth, my whole college career in being a collegiate athlete, 2-time All-American in wrestling, and also a collegiate pole vaulter and national qualifier in the pole vault. I was a 2-sport athlete, but everything I did was to abuse my body because it was this thing I needed to whip into shape or make better because it wasn't enough. And I took that into my 30s, or into my late 20s and into my early 30s. And then one day, after having a broken back and a fully herniated, disintegrated actually, L5-S1, which is in the lower back, bad sciatica, just really not being able to walk more than 10 feet without my back firing. Certainly couldn't run. If I tried to run, I would pay the price for a week. And I started to evolve how I looked or treated my body. And I remember kind of the meditation that came to me about just truly listening to my body and letting it guide the way. I was such a dictator to my body. I told it what to do, when to do it. I was always beating it up. I was always putting it in the corner, telling it to shut up. I was going to put in my mouth whatever I wanted to put in my mouth. I was going to drink whatever I wanted to drink. I was going to do whatever I wanted to do. And if my body hurt, good, because you know what? You should be better, and it's your fault, kind of thing. And it was just this weird thing. But what I found was, especially, and this was all the time when I started working with my pro athletes, and I started to just really listen to and watch behaviors that I go, oh man, that's everything I do or everything I've done. And so when I was working with my pro athletes, that's when this wisdom came to me. And I remember it was a Wednesday morning. I got up after learning this true different kind of partnership, and I said, all right, body, I want to talk to you. I want to support you through movement. I want to love you through movement. And so, listen, I trust you so much. You're so much more powerful than I could ever understand. I'm no longer going to think that my human ego knows more than you do about you. And I separated my body and my mind, and let it become its own being. And then I said, I'm just going to listen to you. What do you want today? What can I do to support you? And I was meditating under a palm tree by the canal. This was off of 40th Street and just south of Camelback. There was a couple palm trees right next to like a little shopping center there. And I was just going to walk the canal or whatever I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I meditated. My body's like, I'd like to run. I'm like, every part of my humanness is like, man, you can't do that. Like, you know how much that hurts when we do that? It's just like, so I'm like, nope, whatever you want. I'm just going to run. I'm going to listen to you. And the whole time, I'm just going to let you lead the way. And it was foreign to me at the time, but it was the first glimpse into understanding how much my body had a voice, had a true beingness, had a true identity. And so I ran. I ended up running 3 miles that day and continued to check in with my body. I'm like, hey, you good? And my body was like, I'm good. And so I just kept going. Now, for some people, it may take some work for you to kind of listen or be able to hear the body. But by this point in my career, professionally, I was doing a lot of meditation, channeling work. I was doing a lot of spiritual stuff. So I was able to hear a separate voice other than mine. So I had some skill set already. I just translated that into learning that my body had a voice. But for others who may not be used to hearing your body's voice, it can come really subtle. So, for example, you might think of a food and you go, hey, body, does this feel good? And you just wait. And maybe your stomach starts to get a little like tight, or maybe your chest gets a little tight, or maybe you feel something like almost a little like indigestion or burp. It can be that subtle, but that could be the start of signs that your body's trying to communicate an answer to you. And just start there, and you just keep trying every day, and before you know it, you'll start to really become aware of your body communicating back to you, hey, this is what works, this is what doesn't. And so for me, I ended up running like 7 days in a row. And it was the biggest awakening of my entire life, because I was just, one, my body was now back. And from that point on, my whole life changed, especially my whole physical life changed. I still had to come a long way with food and exercise and stuff like that, but that was the day no longer that I was a dictator, that I was just making human choices because my humanness wanted this, that, or the other. And I started letting my body lead the way in two major areas, exercise and in food. And then throughout the day, I just tried to think about contributing to supporting my body's lightness and wisdom. And so that's kind of where I would start, Brian. And so the reason why I asked you that question, and I want you to jump back in here, is because now it's not just about the breath, which is amazing, and you do have a great practice, especially in the mornings, and you have a great integration of consciousness and beingness throughout your day, especially as you talk to people and create intention and purpose throughout your day. How does that translate as far as if this was now a big purpose for you, and you could think about integrating this into your day and really just letting your body lead the way, what could this do to adding just a true increased metabolism, lightness of body, as you integrate? That would be the first question that I know a lot of people are looking for clarity on.
Yeah, I mean, well, so if I were trying to choose my words, it's like if I thought I was able to do that, then it's like, well, based on you saying what you said, it would definitely add lightness to my body, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's a part of like, again, so how do I do that again?
Right.
You know what I mean? Is really what, I mean, so I'll when something that I felt like I heard you say was the way you're talking about your body was almost as if it was something other than yourself.
Exactly.
Is the way I heard it. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. There's this path to enlightenment for all of us, this awakening that we're meant to experience. The universe, God, has been so wise, whatever you want to call that, and for everyone it's different. So you can relate to this or connect to this in any way you want, but the universe has been so wise in this that you could literally be by yourself, alone, in a cave, on an island, and you'd had everything you need to the path for enlightenment. And it has to go no farther than your breath and your body, and those are two partnerships in our lives that we're meant to have. Now, there's a big construct out there of serving and serving the world. But first we got to serve this breath and this body, because if we can't do that and we just try to skip those steps and serve the rest of the world, we're not going to get there. So part of understanding this true partnership to life in relationships or anyone else is within our body. It truly is a separate thing. And as we get older, it's not so much that we can't handle the alcohol as much, or we can't just eat whatever we want because our metabolism's slowing down. It's more that our bodies stop putting up with our nonsense, and it's now speaking up more, and it's now going to not be okay with things. So if you're going to eat X, Y, and Z or drink X, you're going to feel it more. Why? Not because you're older and you can't handle it, because your body's just like, you know what? You've lived long enough to have an elevated mind and an elevated experience with me, and we're just not going to take it anymore. So the body is this partner. And so if I am in partnership with my body, then what am I doing with every thought, every food choice, every drink choice, whether it be making sure I have plenty of water or electrolytes, or mindful with other things like alcohol. If I am thinking about how I can say thank you, I love you, and support my body's natural wisdom, natural beingness, natural shape, and the shape part's really huge, then I'm doing something every day to continue to honor that being. And if I'm sitting here with somebody, even posture can be a part of that. Not being angry because of all the chemicals that releases in the body. But the one that's the biggest one that most people don't really understand is that if you think of the body, it has so much wisdom that when it's born, it just knows how to grow. It just knows how to make fingers and toes and all that stuff. And it doesn't need your conscious mind. You don't need the conscious mind to breathe. You don't need the conscious mind to have your heart beat or all the other magical things that happen in your body. But more importantly than that, your body has a natural shape. Everybody has a natural shape. So like a deer, for example, deers in the wild, horses, all these, they have a natural shape. You don't see a lot of short, fat deer and then a lot of tall, skinny deer. Without human interference, our bodies would all have a natural shape to us. Now, everyone has a different bone density and different lengths and stuff like that, so it's a little bit different. But it's virtually the same as the body is so wise it doesn't need more cells or it doesn't need less cells. It just knows how to have just the right amount of cells to support your existence. Now, anything above and beyond that is human interference. So the first thing I would say is in serving the body or partnering with the body or realizing it's a separate thing would be able to close your eyes and to be able to look at what does your body's natural shape look like. Not what you think based on whatever magazine or whatever judgment you've had on yourself, but what if your body could show you its perfect shape. Not too many cells, not too little cells. What would that look like? And then we just start working towards that in purpose. Does that make sense?
It does. You know what? I had my eyes closed, kind of listening to you walk through that, relationship with the body, and it reminded me of parenting. It's almost like I need to treat my body like a child, right? Like I wouldn't go to my kids and just walk up to them and be like, "You look like shit today."
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't look in the mirror and be like, "Wow, you look." I wouldn't look at my kids and be like, "Wow, you look tired." I wouldn't say that out loud to my kids. And if my kids came to me and were like, "Hey, Dad, I think I have a headache," or like, "My elbow hurts," I would probably grab, Rio's elbow and start softly rubbing it. Go, "Does it hurt right there? Or does it hurt right there?" In other words, investigating it, asking questions, listening to his responses, watching if he pulls away or if he's, "No, it doesn't hurt as bad as I thought," or "It's a sharp pain," or "It's this kind of pain," or "What can we do to work it out?" And because what I was trying to do look, you and I, we have a common language because we're friends and we've been working together for so long. So, I know what you mean, right? So I know I can get a general understanding. And then I'm thinking about how can I apply this? What's applicable, right? We're all going to hang up the phone right now. And to go from waking up in the morning at 5:30, 4:30 in the morning, getting myself ready for work, commuting to the office, forgetting to drink enough water, forgetting my lunch at the house and eating some kind of quote fast food, and then getting home exhausted at the end of the week and all these things and being like, oh, and now I'm going to listen to my body and be mindful and create a relationship with my body and listen to it and all those things. I'm like, okay, again, and you did say where to start. I was making me think of how do I listen to my body, right? If I was going to ask you, because that's the first thing, right? Is, man, I'm doing a lot of things, right? I'm like, oh, I'm going to quit drinking. That's going to fix me, right? I'm going to eat better. That's going to fix me. I'm going to start walking instead of running. That's going to fix me. And me, look, at the end of the day, why I'm not worried about anybody's judgment, because I'm judging the heck out of myself. Right? Nobody's judgment's, more intense than my own judgment. And so, there's this part of starting with, all right, how do I listen to my body? First part, I'm like, dude, it hurts. What does that mean? To sit down? Or, where's that first step of listening to your body and then, the transition from either doing to being or being to doing, that we can start to like get one foot in front of the other and start to make a difference in this relationship with our body.
Sure. And the nurturing part and the listening to every little thing, that's all a great first step. So if you do have a little stiffness in the elbow, it's not just like, man, my body's falling apart, or man, what's wrong with me now? It's more of like, okay, body, hey, buddy, what's going on? Let's talk about this. You sit down, you spend enough time, close your eyes, you feel into it, you breathe into it, you put your hand on it, you do rub it, or you just send some energy to it. And energy is as simple, whether this would be the first time or you're an expert at this, you just breathe in a breath. And if you just imagine a breath, and you can imagine it with a color, some people like white light, and you breathe that into that area of tightness, stiffness, soreness, or whatever else it is, and you put your hand there, you're just giving yourself time, attention, and love and nurturing. And then you'd be surprised at the feedback you get. But then you go, okay, well, what can I do to love on you? How can I make this life easier for you? And then you start thinking about, okay, what choices can I make? Well, one, let me get some movement in you. Let me see if there's some general surface stuff, like, oh, maybe I should ice it. Maybe I should soak it. Maybe I should put some heat on it. Whatever it is for you, it's all about, okay, what are you trying to tell me? Not what's wrong with you. And what are you trying to tell me is not just, oh, that, your arm's falling off. No, it's, hey, there's some emotional thing now. There's something I want you to pay attention to, because we have thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And as we experience these things, they're firings of the brain. Those chemicals then react in our brain, and it's the chemical reaction that creates thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Well, those chemicals have to go somewhere, and so they go into the body, into the bloodstream, and they'll settle different places, depending on the emotion, depending on the person. Some people stress settles in their shoulders. Some people stress settles in their stomach or in their knees. And so ultimately, when we breathe in and we start to breathe into whatever that area is, not only are we giving our physical body attention and asking how you can support it through maybe shifting some food choices, maybe thinking differently, but more importantly, what emotions am I feeling that are contributing to this dysfunction? And so whether it is a lower back or stiffness in the joints, some of that stuff is just not only what we ate last night, but it's also what we're emotionally experiencing. So if you can just start with one thing, and you wake up every day and you say, okay, body, what can I do today to support you? What can I do today to say, as an action of love, to say, I care about you, I love you, I support you? And of course, food is a great thing. But then, if you are stiff, if you are a little tight in the lower back, or even a lot tight, then you start to really go, okay, what not only can I do to support you physically, what are you trying to tell me about my emotions that are causing this experience as well? Because it's both. And so if your body is really trying to get your attention for your own evolution of human consciousness.
Awesome. And I don't know, Nick Mowry said he had something he wanted to share, and I'm not Clubhouse savvy enough to know how.
Yeah, I'll pull him up.
I'll
pull him up right now.
Him up, but,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we start thinking about this. Now, you would think that, and I invited him, so he's just got to accept, and then once he does, he can come on up. But when we think when we think about this, it is kind of a full-time thought. So we have plenty of brain power to think about whatever text, emails, business that we have to do every day, and also think about, too, how do we serve our body in the process? We have plenty of bandwidth for that. But it's typically, like you said, just, our bodies, we forgot lunch, we just get something quick to eat. There's so many times we put our body, not only just second or even third, but truly last. And of course, and by the way, the metabolism of our body is tied to the body's excitement for life. Now I want you to hear that again for anyone listening. Our metabolism is our body's measurement of the excitement for life. And if it's not excited about life, our metabolism slows down. And so when you have a slower and slower metabolism, barring any health issues that are dramatically affecting that, because then you're talking thyroid and some other things, and that's a whole nother emotional conversation. But the point is in general, if your metabolism is lowering, your body's excitement for life is lowering. And that's not something people speak of. Of course, that's not in Western medicine, nor does it have to be. But it is in this body's wisdom. So what do we do to continue to get our body excited for life? Well, we give it a reason to want to live, not just get by because of everything you're putting into it, or mentally or emotionally, or even physically, but just giving it some bigger reason to live. And yes, it is happiness, joy, love. And Brian, here's what's interesting about where you're at, and maybe where you're a little frustrated in self is, and you're doing so many great things to support your body's excitement for life, but ultimately your body is still asking for something different. And part of the food, it's not just what we eat, is what are our emotions while we're eating food. Because you can eat the perfect food for whatever perfect means, and you can do it without presence or action of love to the body, and it not have the same effect. And more than that, if you don't allow yourself to go even farther than just going, man, I'm eating this because I want to tell my body I love and honor it. But if you go, does this food come from love? And more importantly than that, what's the wisdom of this carrot, this beet, this beautiful vegetable, this rice, these lentils, or whatever that beautiful Mother Nature is that you bring into your body? When you can go even farther because you're now becoming more present. I mean, you can go as far as you want with this, but what my goal is every time I try to eat is to take in the wisdom of Mother Earth through the food, to honor my body with this food, and my body to take in Mother Earth's wisdom, and for it to really utilize it to live this exciting physical life. And that's how I was able to lose 30 pounds, and it was pretty amazing. And I didn't do it. I still eat waffles every weekend. Some of you on here have experienced the waffles, including you, Bri. And have amazing pizza and all kinds of things. It's not about no carbohydrates or this or that. It's just eating in a different way, with a different energy, from different ingredients, and activating the wisdom of Mother Earth in your body through food. So that's just one kind of construct that people can start to play with. And again, you can start to understand this, and for anyone who has questions for Brian or I, you can, on our bios here on Clubhouse, you can Instagram us and send a message if you have follow-up questions or whatever. You can just DM us on there. But the point is that this is deep. But if you just start at the surface and say, does this food feel like food that says I love you to the body? That's great. Am I thinking consciously that I love myself and I love this food and this food comes from love when I eat it, and that I'm using it to tell my body I love and want to honor it? And if you can do that, that's a great first step just with food. And all of a sudden your body starts to increase its metabolism and get excited for life. Plus, consistent eating also helps. And when you don't eat consistently, the body's like, oh man, like, think about that. I mean, a body can get pretty bummed out easily when it does, it likes to be nourished, and you stop feeding it for an afternoon or an evening, or because you didn't have time for lunch, that body's not going to get too excited.
Truth. Yeah, it's awesome. I got stuck back at how do I feel when I eat and what are my emotions, and all I could think about was cheesecake, Al. And just feeling like I'm so happy when I eat cheesecake. So maybe I'm going to go on a steady diet of cheesecake and see if I can overcome all this. No, I'm just kidding. I get so happy. So real quick, I want to shift gears for just a second, if you're up for it, Al, just a little bit, which is, so much of the dialogue that you and I have become accustomed to, well, not the dialogue, yes, the dialogue for the listeners, but the way of living, way of being. When you use these descriptive words of like breathing into your body and holding space for parts of your body, and sending energy down through. For anybody who's not practiced, or even been exposed, right? Al, when you and I first met, I just had never been exposed to the information, wisdom that you harness, and I didn't know about it. It was a totally new way of thinking. And as I tell a 1 or 2 minute story here, Al, where I'm going to go with this is the science of what you do versus the feeling, the spiritual part of what you do, because so many of the words, the vocabulary that we use, and I'm challenging the 1 or 5 people I don't know on the screen potentially, because I know so many people that are on the screen either know you or work with you or know of my time with you, is this feeling of when the very first time I ever came to do a session with you, ever. I remember in your home office, and I walked in and we sat down, and you kind of did a bit of a discovery with me for a few minutes, and I'm sure pretty quickly my type A immature old Brian self was like, yeah, I don't really know who you are or what you do, but if this is some like woo-woo thing, you're gonna take a voodoo doll out and start poking pins in it to make me better, I'm not sure this is my gig. Probably said something like that. That would have been a very Brian way of thinking. Probably not to that degree. I had a pretty open mind, but I'm embellishing for sake of the conversation. And I remember that you sat down with me and you helped me to understand quickly the concept of Reiki. I know that was something that you had been certified in and that you've done a lot of work around. At that time, I think it was, I don't want to say new, but newish. Again, this was 10 years ago. So you helped me understand that, and you worked through, and then you stuck your arm out and you pulled your sleeve up. If you had a sleeve on at that time, at least that's how I remember it. And you took a couple of really deep breaths and you gave yourself goosebumps on your skin. And you went, and there's a science to it too. Through breathing, I have control. I don't know if you'd use the word control, but I have the ability to move my body. I have the ability to influence my body. And that's the science of it. And I was like, whoa. And I went, whoa, because I am somebody who needs proof. And like, prove it to me, right? Like, show me. I want to touch it before I can believe it, kind of thing. That's just, I don't know. It's just for whatever reason, I've got that way of thinking. And so as I hear you using vocabulary that's very familiar for me, breathe this energy into this part of your body and listen to, it feels like I remember there being a time in my life where I was like, yeah, right, dude. You know what I mean? Like, what do you, can I just go get a massage? You know what I mean? Like where they push on that part of my body and make it better? Or can I just go take some medicine? Go get a prescription and that'll make it better. And then watching you physically change the external state of your body by breath was all I needed. I had my proof at that point and I was in very quickly. Can you help with some very, I don't know, I'm going to use terms like black and white or, structure around how breath from a scientific space can help with the mind, the brain, and the body in that for the people that need it to be proven to them on the call?
Sure. So right now I'm doing goosebumps. No, I'm kidding. So what happens with our body is it's just a giant electrical machine. It's just producing electricity, it's producing current, and that electricity is going through our body. One thing that our breath does is, from a functional standpoint, it brings oxygen into the body, and when our muscles are oxygenated, they have a better ability to fire. Blood flow increases, that fluid continues to create better connectivity, or a better conduit, if you will, to get the nerves to fire. What happens over time is that our entire body is the circuit board, and it can get corrosion. There's little nubs and nodules that can get corrosion. There's parts of the wires that can even get disconnected, and that happens over time. And ultimately, if you think about just the science of our neck, and if you have a neck and you got tight muscles, it can create a headache. And the reason why the back of the neck, and for most people who are listening to this, you can correlate some version of tight neck, tight shoulders with some dysfunction of the head, whether it be headache, tight head, whatever. The reason why is because the blood flow can't naturally go as smooth, and that the nerves are actually being cut off of that electrical firing. And so what the breath does from just a simple standpoint is it can tell the body that we're either in fight or flight, or that we're okay. And back when you and I started, Brian, and I did have some kind of spiritual conversation with my clients, I guess, some language, I would say, more than spiritual conversation. It was pretty much all science for me. I was 10 plus years ago in the area I was working. There wasn't a lot of people that were really open to that whole spiritual thing like it is today. And so I had to really lean on the science of everything and the science of what I do and what I know and how I was able to do it for me. And so the breath is a huge part of just a functional way that you can tell your body that you are okay. Because a lot of times we short breath when we don't even know it. When we're not focused on our breath, we're not paying attention, we short breath. And when we short breath, we reduce the amount of oxygen that our brain and that our body gets. And then our body starts to get into this fight or flight mode where it needs to survive. Now, it's on a very subtle level, but if you've ever felt like you held your breath too long underwater and you felt this like, oh shit feeling kind of thing, like, I need air like now. That is a more extreme version, but a subtle version is just unconsciously short breathing and feeling this state of arrest in the body. And again, that's also subtle. And a great example of that would be if you ever watch a scary movie and there's a scary scene, and after the scene's over, you realize like, oh man, like I was holding my breath there, and you go, okay, I'm good. You didn't even notice you were holding your breath during that scene or during that moment. You just realized it after the fact. This is how the body subtly works. And so there's a subtle state of arrest in the body, which means it pulls resources in, sensation, blood flow. It doesn't need your toes to survive. It doesn't even need your feet or the lower extremities to survive. It doesn't need the ends of your fingers. It can really work in its core level. So if you think about kind of from the waist, just below, a little bit below the waist, up, the torso, and up through the top of the head, that is the body's most important, vital key ingredient to life. And so anything else, it can if it had to end it, it would. Now it's not trying to stop function of your legs or your toes, but it will lessen it. And so what the breath does scientifically is when you have a full, deep, long breath in and a full, deep, long breath out, you're telling your body you're not in a state of arrest. And so then the body starts to open up its flow. It starts to not have to conserve all its energy or oxygen, and it gets it all the way down to the extremities, and it allows your body to get into a state of not survival, but thrive. And for my athletes, they were big into that because, of course, it made them sharper, it put them in the zone. But for business people, it made them think clearer, it made them think more decisively in a bigger vision, bigger picture. And so ultimately, this breath does that. Now, you can continue to take that farther and farther because now if you focus the breath in certain parts of the body, you increase its awareness to that area. Just like if everyone listening on the call were to touch their left shoulder right now with their hand, before you even touched your shoulder, you knew you had a shoulder, you knew it was there, but when you touch it, you create a different level of awareness. And now if you feel it, you can feel the muscles and all the different parts. And when you take your hand away, now you can feel your shoulder more present. The same thing the breath can do. So when you breathe in from the inside approach and direct that same energy and attention to that part of the body, you increase its awareness. And so the breath is huge to just scientifically getting your body out of an arrest state, out of a survival state, and into a thriving state, and into a flow state, and into a more evolutionary state versus just just trying to manage state. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, there's, of course. I mean, it's. I think there was some basics and there was some advanced in there for everybody. I think it's just understanding that there's a science to the value of breath. I mean, so I saw JW raise his hand here. I'd be interested. I'm sure he's got a question for us, which you want to transition to that. Al, I've got to wind up here in about 5 minutes or so. I just wanted to say, short breath is a big, that's very real for me right now. I said to Trish in the office the other day, I said, hey, Trish, do you ever just forget to breathe sometimes? She started laughing. It's because I caught myself not breathing. I mean, short breath, right? Short breathing. And so that is something that I need. I've got, the good news is I'm aware of it right now.
Yeah.
So I'm paying attention. I've got an awareness around it, but I feel like for everybody on the screen, pay attention to that short breathing. You want to bring JW in here?
I did invite him. I'm waiting for him to accept it. Okay. But yeah, the thing is, and so again, it goes back to the original question I had for you. What are you doing every day to really create that lightness? And just the breath, having a more elongated breath throughout your day while you do everything will get your body really excited to live and thrive. And of course, that means also metabolism and energy and clarity and everything else. So if we can get our bodies there just with a simple functional breath, if you have nowhere else to start, just try to breathe longer breaths in. You're continuing to signal to your body that it's excited to be alive, and you're excited for it to be alive. That's a great first step. And then, of course, again, you can add everything you want, from food to drink to how you think when you eat, and then go farther and go, well, where is this food coming from? What wisdom can it have for my body? So we just can go as far down that process as you want. The other thing just to remember or to recall is the fact that if you can separate your body and not be a dictator to it, but to be true equal partners with it, and every time you choose to eat, invite your body into the conversation. Does this honor you? Does this feel good? And then breathe. And then if your breath feels good and your body feels good when you think about this food, even hold something up to your chest. Does your body feel normal, or does it get tight? It's amazing. And this is all a part of the self-discovery. You don't have to take a class to do this. There's no right way to do this. Of course, it's nice to get guidance and get coaching on it, but at the end of the day, it's all about you choosing to just explore your own body's voice and wisdom in whatever way you want and play with it. That's our life is meant to play in this space. And JW, I don't know. I did invite you a couple times. Clubhouse is.
I did too. So.
Yeah, it's new for people, so sometimes it's you can miss the invite, or it's a little different. But if anyone else has a question, even if Brian, I understand you got a time limit, I got a few extra minutes. If anyone else had questions, wanted to raise their hand, wanted to put any kind of value add, we're just up here. But everyone has their own stories and own wisdom in this space because we all have bodies.
My big takeaway, Al, I always like to wind these up with an action item for me, a takeaway, and for me it was I've got to I'm doing a lot of things. You've said it multiple times, and I'm like, why am I not? Usually I'm a words of affirmation guy, so that feels like a word of affirmation. Like, Brian, you're doing a lot of great things, which usually I would perk up. I would sit up in my seat. And I'm like, why does that not feel like I'm doing something great, so to speak? And what it feels like for me is that I am doing a lot of great things, right? But what I'm not doing is listening. I'm not listening to my body, right? I don't have that metaphor for me of treating my body first. Just having the awareness that our body and our self are two different things, so to speak. They're two in the same, but that there's this external relationship with body whereby I can talk to it, nurture it, listen to it, have a conversation with it, the same way that I would my child, is something that's a big aha for me this morning. So thank you, Al, as usual. And I know Eric's here with us, so I'm going to zip it. Eric, jump on in.
Hey guys, I love this conversation. I just wanted to build on that even more. With so many of our problems would be avoided if we just did get back to listening to our bodies. You know, there's so many times I think where people can sit there and eat food and not pay attention to how it actually feels. You know, there's the only diet book I ever recommend to anybody when I'm doing coaching is this book called Wired to Eat, where it basically breaks down what you're eating and gets you back to a reset where you're basically just eating very, minimal things, and you slowly incorporate things back in and notice how it makes you feel. Yeah, maybe you're craving Mexican food or you're craving this, but after you eat it, how do you feel? Are you tired? Are you, angry? And I've noticed with me, stuff that I love, foods I love, after I eat them, I do feel like crap, but I still do it. And it's like, why? What's the reason behind that? And just listening to that and paying attention and giving it the love and respect that it deserves, I think is a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring up such a beautiful point on two aspects. One, just the human condition. Because of our emotional programming from the time we're born with food, our human consciousness really has so much power over our food choices. And even after you've done a reset, which is the second thing that is a really brilliant thing to speak to, which is this reset. Try to go back. That's why people juice cleanse or do some other things. And I'm not asking anyone to go extreme, but if you can just go down to some basic foods and do that for 3 days even, you put your body into a reset state. And of course, then as you invite foods back in, you all of a sudden get to this space of learning what your body is telling you. So that's another way to do it in a brilliant way. Thank you for that add in, Eric. That's brilliant. And that book, I of course, I don't read hardly any books, but for anyone, say that book again. And Brian, if you could put your background there. Thank you, Brian. Eric, what's that book again?
Yeah, so it's Wired to Eat, and it's by Rob Wolf.
Cool. That's a great value add. Awesome. Alana, man, it's been so long since we talked. It's beautiful to see you.
Likewise. Oh my goodness. First of all, Al, like you said, it's been such a long time since we connected. And I was just so delighted to receive the notification that you were facilitating a conversation on the mind and body. So thank you to you and Brian for creating this space. I do have a question. As a yoga and Reiki practitioner, I should say, I've spent the last 10 years working with women, helping them integrate the practices of meditation, yoga, and Reiki into their daily routine to help them overcome various challenges, but in a real practical and accessible way. And that's why some of this, dialogue around cultivating a greater listening of the body really speaks to me. I love the practical approach. And I really appreciate how both you and Brian have emphasized the importance of not only listening to the body, but what I'm hearing you say is creating a dialogue with the body to track how we feel. I feel like there's so much wisdom in the cultivation of that dialogue. And looking back on some of the work that we've done together in the past, Al, the biggest takeaway for me in our exchanges has been around the self-love piece, which in my experience is definitely the foundation for learning to listen to our bodies. In this phase of retraining the brain and cultivating a relationship with our body where we really learn how to listen to what it needs, can you speak more to the self-love component and maybe provide a couple of tools or nuggets that one can start to implement to help train the brain to develop a greater sense of self-love? Because I often find that working with women, the self-love component seems to be the most challenging.
Yeah, what a beautiful big space. Brian, I know you got to go, but if you have anything
I love you so much. No, I love you so much. And And I love that Alana, I'm sorry if I'm not saying it correctly, jumped in here. By the way, I followed you, so I look forward to getting to know you better. Same with you, Eric. Thank you guys for raising your hand and adding conditional value to our conversation here. Thank you, everybody, for listening. So many of our friends. I appreciate you guys so much. I'm going to let you guys take it away, Al. I love you, and let's circle back later.
Cool, brother. Love you too. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Okay, so self-love, I mean, Alana, that's a huge question. To just speaking, no matter what gender you are, or even inner energy dominance that you have as far as male or female energy, this is something that, again, the two things I said that are the biggest challenge for us is self-love and emotional eating, or eating due to this emotional body versus the human body. And of course then, if those are two of the biggest challenges we'll face in our human existence, then they really are closely tied together. And self-love becomes this thing that when we want to choose honor of our actual physical body or even our breath, there are so many things pulling us away from the human condition, whether it's whatever magazines, whatever spaces, and specifically when it comes to females, and I've said this for a long time, you know, my first class I actually taught at a university. It was a women's studies group, or a women's studies class, and I would speak to this class about the power of females, and that was back in, I graduated in 98, so that would have been in 1999, I started speaking to female empowerment. Part of that growing up with a single mother who was amazing and raised by her and my sister, you know, that was a big influence on the female power piece for me and the awareness. But when we look at female energy in general, whether it's if you're a man with female energy, because we all, by the way, anyone who's listening, male or female, this is important to hear because the female energy is in all of us, no matter if you're male or female, and the male energy is in all of us, no matter if you're male or female, and we are typically dominated by one or the other growing up, and that's why there's girls that are tomboys, and that's why there's men that are more deeply sensitive and emotional. But ultimately, when it comes to the female side of the energy, it has been continually perceived as weak and as this thing that has to be almost sensationalized or judged. It's such a heavily judged thing, and that's why all these magazines are out there judging women and judging their outfits and judging all that. Because of this powerful thing that it is, it can be scary, and when things are powerful and scary, we tend to want to reduce them down to some elementary thing. But the female body and the female energy is so much more powerful. It's the source of creation. It's the source of, I would tell people that male energy is action, female energy is the creation. And that's true, of course, females are the only ones that can create babies, but when we're talking about actually creating a different level of abundance, now we can create abundance through physical action. Sales calls, text messages, whatever, we can use human male energy to dominate. And again, it doesn't matter what gender you are, you can do this. But if you really want to create from a bigger space, you want to tap into your female energy. If you really want to love from a bigger space, you want to tap into your female energy. It is huge. And so, of course, females are going to have a very big sensitivity to self-love because of the constant, I would say, suppression to just female energy in general, and then specifically the female gender. So, self-love for a female breaks down into something really, really simple. You have to so intimately breathe, so deeply feel that it comes down to elementary things. Because if you look at a wrinkle on your face, there's a magazine that tells you should get rid of it. If you look at something on your skin, there's a cream out there to make you better. That is dominated in the female world. So you've got to fundamentally get back to such a basic level, Alana, or for anyone listening, that you just feel an actual finger. Feel its simple functionality. back to the basics starts to eliminate whatever human construct out there for generations and generations that's told us how to interpret females or female energy. It gets you into this space of just functional, true functional. Can I wiggle my fingers? Can I wiggle my toes? Can I feel the simple cellular being that I am? And all of a sudden, when we can get back to the actual cellular being and feel an arm raised up in the air, feel you roll your neck, feel you move your ankles, and feel you just connect to the actual physical body, each skin cell is not male or female. It's a skin cell. Each bone cell, each nail cell, each nerve cell. For those people, you have to continue to break it down beyond looks into the most basic cellular function. If you can do that, then you can start acting from that place of just acceptance of the body. And that would be the first step for so many people of self-love. And that would be huge. And from there, you can start to build some momentum, some strength, just getting out of male or female, getting out of human construct, and just starting to love the cellular body as it is, just on a functional. Love the way your fingers move. And do your best not to let human judgment go, oh, my fingers are so fat, or oh, like they don't do this like they used to do, or whatever else. But just keep it getting as basic as possible. If you can do that, that's the first step. Now you have this basic self-love that is neither male or female, neither shape or looks, and it's just to actually the cellular space. From there you build and you start adding in just a different sensation of breath and a different sensation of acceptance, and then you can start to look past whatever our human condition has done to our bodies, because we've all done it. There's none of us on this call that hasn't used whatever human emotions to affect our body in some way, shape, or form. I've got plenty of scars to show that. I've got plenty of things that that represent that. So if our body, if our cellular body has a little few cells here, a few cells there more, that's not our body's fault. That's nothing wrong with our body. Every cell is perfect. We just have more of it in an area. So the second step would be acceptance of what our body has experienced, and then gratitude that it's put up with us for this long. Like, it's really put up with our behavior, our actions, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and so we've let our bodies just kind of be a second thought. And so as we start to bring this back in, we go, man, I put my body through a lot. So again, above and beyond male or female, this is a big second step. It's just so grateful for the body for putting up with our human behavior, and then continuing to go from there. Is that a great response, Alana, for what you're asking?
Yes, Al, thank you. I really love that. And I like what you shared about the acceptance of our body and how it's supported us, and really pointing to, you know, learning how to support the body from a place of greater self-love and acceptance. One of the things that, you know, really jumped out for me or stands out and came to mind is, and just remembering that it's a practice. You know, as I'm learning to continually retrain my brain or, you know, challenge self-sabotaging patterns of behavior that might show up, just remembering that it's a practice, and just you know, remembering to stay committed to loving myself and caring for myself more. So thanks so much, Al. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you're very well. And it's really back to the basics, truly. Like, if you think about if we ever got injured and you have shoulder rehabilitation, knee rehabilitation, you start with the most basic movements. If you've ever had a surgery you've had to come back from, you start with the basic movements. And all this is there's going to be times you might start doing well and then maybe, quote unquote, re-injure yourself because you kind of pushed it too far. So now we're back to step one of shoulder therapy or rehab. The same with the mind and how we self-love. Sometimes we're starting to get some momentum and then we overeat or overdo this or overdo that, like not in moderation or balance, but because, you know what, it was a tough day. That's okay. Our humanness is always going to be there to throw these complications and, honestly, these awarenesses into our lives to keep us coming back to ourselves. However, what do? We don't lose everything. We're not lost and having to start over from this place of, we've wasted all this time. We do go back to the basics. But we go back to the basics because the basics are always going to be the best thing anyway. And if you're interested in that process, then fine. You just go back and you go, okay, let me remind myself again, simple fundamental movements, simple gratitude for actually just being able to put my hand to my mouth with a cup, or hug somebody, or what are my cells again? Let me just picture cells and think about what those do for me, and let me just get back to that kind of self-love. Okay, let me start there. And then build. And what happens is if you've done this a few times, then you quickly not only get back to where you were, but you go even beyond that. And then you just keep going. I still go back to the basics a lot, no matter what. So that's an important thing too for the people who feel like they're struggling. You can stay in the basics as long as you need to or want to, and you can always go back there and continue to remind yourself of where self-love really begins, and how simple it can be without judgment. So that would be that. And if Eric, if you or Alana, if you guys have anything more to add, or anyone else down in the group wants to add anything, please feel free. Because I guess, Alana, tell me more about, for those people on the call and to follow up with your question, have you noticed those people that can keep it simple having more success?
Absolutely. And, in the space of sharing, these deep wisdom traditions like yoga or meditation even, and Reiki, that they can be very, in the context of sharing those practices, it can be very difficult for people to really grasp all aspects of each of those respective teachings. So getting back to the basics and what you were speaking to is really helpful, I find, and that's sort of been my approach in my own practice. My health and wellness practice is to provide simple, practical tools to approaching some of the challenges and obstacles that we face in daily life. The beautiful part of this journey for me, just personally, and being able to help others navigate their way through some of the challenges that they're having, is discovering that, like, this quote-unquote path to healing is not linear, right? And that the blueprint for healing is different for everyone, but it starts with turning inward and really challenging some of the limiting beliefs that we might hold, or, like I mentioned before, the self-sabotaging patterns of behavior that it's so easy to succumb to because we come to the table with, our conditioned beliefs and various perspectives. So one of the things that speaks to me so much about, like, NLP work and a lot of the work that you do is these real basic, simple, practical approaches to learning to listen to our bodies more. I think it really starts with that, and that self-love piece is essential, because that is going to be sort of the motivating factor to continually show up for ourselves, and to cultivate that greater ear of listening to what our bodies need, and therefore, by way of experience, continually showing up for that work. And it is oftentimes, not just for myself, but other people, in my experience, that it's that going back to the basics, day in, day out, and really retraining the brain to, function at a more optimal level. But that all, for me, at least in my approach and for my path, has been learning to really listen deeply to my body, to my intuition, to what I'm feeling, and to really honor that. So I appreciate the space that you've created, Al, and this discussion.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I mean, it really is key to remember we are truly all doing this for our own selves. And while it is beautiful to have someone hold a space or share information, it's really up to you to decide what this information means to you, and then really up to you to have self-discovery. And for some people, that might be a physical injury issue, and that's part of your journey to enlightenment in partnership with your body. For others, it could be weight. For others, it could be maybe some eating disorder or some other feeling or emotion. But that's the beautiful thing about not only this human experience, but why everyone has something to offer this world, is because we all do it and are meant to learn it so differently. And so I encourage you to not only just take this information or whatever information that you're exposed to, take it and let it mean something to you based on what you choose to make it mean, not because somebody else tells you this is what this means. Own all of this information and create truth from it. And that, again, like Alana said, you have to go in and go up to do that. So it's really cool. Got just a few more minutes here. Coach Missy joined us. It's great to have you. What did you want to say?
Thank you. Thank you for pulling me up. I love this discussion. I love this room, and everything you were sharing was so amazing. I like how you break down just the basics of how to get back in touch with your body and really love and appreciate your body. And when you were talking about, like, how do we love ourselves again? I use forgiveness with my clients, with myself, and keeping it really basic, right? So it's like, I'm going to love and accept myself no matter what. And even if I mess up, I get to choose again. I just get to keep trying again and again. And I like how you mentioned that, yes, it's going to make you stronger, it's going to make you better. And so I always thought that, fitness is easy for me. I got this health thing down. But really, yes, and because I was raised in an active way, that action part is easy for me. But as far as eating and discipline, if I look back, no, I screwed up like everyone else. I overate, I socially ate, I had weak moments, but each time I just started over again. And so now, what I teach my clients is grace. Because before, maybe I would beat myself up into choosing differently. Oh, I messed that up, and I'll go run an extra mile or something like that. But as I look back, I can see just how far I've come. And so that's the part that I love to use with people. And lately, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the whole Ho'oponopono prayer. Or it's a very amazing process for clearing energy, right? So you guys talked about NLP. I use a lot of EFT. But this prayer I found is really great for not only clearing energy for someone else, but for yourself. So you can forgive yourself and clear that energy. Do you use that one, Al?
No, but it's okay. I'm not really familiar with a ton of external resources. But yeah, what is the prayer?
So you repeat it over and over again, and you can say it in a different order. So it starts with, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And it can stir up all kinds of stuff. Like, people will come to your mind, and then you can start to say it to them, and then you can see them saying it back to you. And I just find it super powerful.
Yeah, I have. Now I know what you're talking about. I've had clients share that with me before, but I didn't know the name of it. So yeah, I have heard that. You said a couple things, grace and acceptance, which are huge pieces to this puzzle, because our humanness is so amazing, and it's really meant to support our evolution. So of course it's going to come in and just throw opportunities for us to seek inner wisdom, higher wisdom. And that would be, in your case, back in the day when you overate. And what I've continued to do for myself and for my clients is remind them that if you can just love and nurture your humanness and accept it, don't be afraid of it, don't try to shut it up, don't try to, if you have scarcity or lack, if you have guilt or fear, don't feel like it's even wrong or even that there's this thing you have to get better. It's speaking a voice to you to remind you of love, trust, connection. And when those human variables speak up, if they can be a beautiful support, even a coach to remind you to breathe in, breathe up, connect to this bigger truth, this bigger love, then we're using this human experience as a true friend. And that nurturing of it and just going, oh, it's okay. And thinking about us as emotional babies. I often speak this as if you could imagine 100 little physical babies at that stage of learning how to walk, and you put them all in a room together. First of all, it'd be really great if some scientists did this, because I would love to see what that would look like. It'd be fantastic. But if you think about a bunch of babies learning to walk, they're all trying to do it different ways. Some are sitting up in the room and in the middle trying to figure it out that way. Some end up falling over into somersaults. Some pull themselves up over with the coffee table, the chair. We've all learned how to physically walk in our own way. But emotionally, we all think that because we're adults, we have this all figured out, or we should, and that if we make a wrong choice, then we're idiots, or we're stupid, or we're even wrong. No, emotionally, all of us, I don't care if you're 5 years old or 105 years old, we're all still emotional babies learning to walk. And so when we try to lift ourselves up and stumble or fall, it's not like a wrong thing. It's a part of the journey to our emotional stability and learning how to walk. So there's two parts there. Again, one, it's loving and accepting your humanness as a key ingredient to your evolution, and every voice that you hear or every behavior that comes up, it's meant to remind you how to go in and to go up, and what behaviors you can choose to do to do that. And secondly, that love and acceptance and that grace comes in the fact that I can promise you I'm going to stumble again and I'm going to fall again. And what's nice now is my falls and my stumbles aren't crashes and burns like they used to be, because I've continued to make it easier on myself. But we all still have stumbles and falls. And my personal work, my personal coaching for myself and my evolution, my spiritual journey, it's been over 16 years now. And I'm still going to have scarcity, lack, fear, doubt, worry. I'm still going to have anger, frustration, impatience. Again, all those things are on such a smaller level now, where before they used to own me. And maybe you're listening here and some of these emotions are bigger than you right now. That's okay. And no matter what, just keep working towards you being bigger than the humanness that is owning you. And as long as you keep doing that, we're all going to be good.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Perfect. All right. Well, listen, everybody, I really appreciate it. Everyone who's on the call, and I'm excited. I'm actually going to put this up. I recorded it on another phone so that I can put it up on YouTube. It'll be a nice thing to add so that other people can get value who either don't have Clubhouse or maybe didn't have time to be on the call. But for everyone who was, so grateful for all of you that spoke and everyone who listened. And Alana, it's so great to reconnect with you, reunite with you. And Eric, as always, we've also reunited, even though it hasn't been too long, at least not as long as Alana and I. And then Missy, it's really great to meet you. You guys all have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks, Al. Love to you, Nikki.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Great job.
All right.